You've tuned into InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, a video podcast series. Our episode starts right now. Here's your host, Dominique Vale.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, where you can check in for your dose of stigma-breaking, humor-filling, motivation-loving, life hacks, and empowering tips for all of the medically adultish people in your life. I'm Dominique Vale, founder of InvisiYouth Charity and your host for InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, and we are back for Season 6, Episode 95, and in honor of continuing to bring back returning special guests, you know I had to bring back a duo who are one of my personal favorites to be on the podcast and also one of our most successful podcast episodes to date. They were on Season 3, Episode 36. I am so stoked to bring these two ladies back on. I have the incredible sister duo of Abigail Heringer and her older sister, Rachel. The Heringers were both born with congenital hearing loss, and when each turned 2 years old, they were given cochlear implants. While now Abigail has an international audience of over almost 750,000 followers, Abigail was known as the first deaf contestant and first contestant with cochlear implants on season 25 of The Bachelor and Bachelor in Paradise, where she ended up meeting her fiancé Noah. And there's so much more that has grown in Abigail's life since she has stopped receiving roses and left the beach, if you will. They were both now raised in Oregon with her 3 siblings, older sister Rachel, and their 2 younger brothers, Alistair and Stuart. Now, Abigail has become a prominent deaf advocate, speaker, and social media influencer, living with Noah and their beautiful German Shepherd, Maki, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where they are now documenting their beautiful home renovations. I'd highly recommend it if you love some home reno stuff. And it is genetic for the Heringers to be empowered young women because we have her sister Rachel as an equally gifted boss lady herself. Rachel, also from Oregon and as well, was the youngest person to undergo cochlear implantation surgery at Oregon Health and Science University, and now is going into her 6th year as an account executive in commercial insurance with Hefferman Insurance Brokers. So I should probably ask her a lot of questions when it comes to my future needs of insurance. Rachel has now traded in the West Coast as well and has moved to Tulsa to be closer to Abigail with her photogenically cool and one of my personal favorite dogs on the gram, her Corgi Lou. So also follow just for Lou, I'm just saying. So I am super excited for this dynamic sister duo to be back on because we are also celebrating the release of Abigail's book, The Deaf Girl, which you guys can now buy in stores. So I'm so excited for you to catch up with these two. So Abigail and Rachel, welcome back on the podcast.
Thanks for having us again. We're excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you both on. It was, like I said, one of my favorite episodes to do over the years. So to get to bring you both back and also to celebrate the release of your book is super exciting. And so obviously if anytime I can pull in Rachel was the first of the Heringers I got to connect with before I got to connect with Abigail. So getting to have you both on is a lot of fun. So I'm excited to hop on a new episode. And as always, before we hop into our first segment with Abigail and Rachel, yes, you guys might hear I mentioned the dogs and you might hear some barking, which I appreciate. I love a good dog moment, so I like it. Before we jump in, I love to have you guys always subscribe to the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, so you can do that on our YouTube channel to watch this episode or on all of our audio podcast platforms. Our links are in the description and show notes, and you'll have another 50 minutes to do so I might remind you again later on. And now we were going into our first segment. It is Illest Superlatives. Illest Superlatives. I love having fun getting to know our special guests, and even though they are returning, I love to, rapid fire ask some questions to Rachel and Abigail, because being a sister duo myself with my older sister, I love getting to ask questions to siblings and see how they answer. Look at them. They're so cozy sitting next to each other, and it's just like they're ready to go. Last time they were on 2 different coasts. Now they're shoulder to shoulder. So I'm so excited to go through this. So, all right. First question goes, we're going eldest to youngest here. Rachel, what is the one thing that was new you learned about Abigail when you two lived together when you were in San Diego?
That was a good question. Since we had lived together in Portland before, there was already a lot that I knew going into San Diego. But the one thing I will say is she's a really good cook. And I got really spoiled with some really nice dinners. So that was pretty clutch.
Oh, I do like that. And Abigail, same question. Now that Rachel is your neighbor again, what's something new about Rachel you've learned getting to live near each other?
Yeah, I think for me, I think we spent more time on the same schedule in San Diego than in Portland, kind of just similar friends and activities. And I think just something I did notice about her is how detail-oriented she is in a good way, just because Noah and I, we are the opposite. And I think it was just really nice having someone that was detail-oriented in the house with the schedule, everything. I think that was a good structure that we needed.
Oh,
and Noah's right there looking at us.
I like a color coordinated schedule, Rachel. So I'm right there with you. I'll take that as well. So Rachel, what is your favorite thing you've learned about living in Tulsa?
Learned about living in Tulsa? That's a good question. I think just the history that's here, especially just in the neighborhood that I'm in, you just can drive through different pockets and see some like really amazing homes and some mansions, which is crazy. But I think overall, just the history of just being in the, I don't know if it's the Midwest or the South, what they classify it.
Nobody really knows.
Yeah, nobody really knows. I think it's just kind of the plains, but just learning the history and just seeing the sights out here, just being on the West Coast my entire life, it's just a completely different part of the country. So.
Oh, I like that. That's a good answer. And even Abigail, on your end, you've been doing a lot of home renovations with Noah. So what's a new thing you learned about home reno that you might appreciate differently now going through it?
I think for me, I never realized just how many small things go into home renovation. Like I didn't know anything about trim, for example, before we moved in. And after home renovations, every single place that we go to, I'm looking at the trim of the places, the tile, everything. And so I think just really recognizing, one, how much work goes into it, how many decisions you have to make. Like you look at a wall, you're like, okay, that's just the wall. But then the person that worked on it had to like pick the trim, the color, the texture, everything. And so I think that was kind of the biggest thing that I learned with home renovation is it's not as easy as it looks on social media, for sure.
I appreciate those HGTV people way more when I see the struggle.
Yes.
For sure. Now, this is a question for the both of you. So I know, Abigail, you then met your fiance on television. No, your future brother-in-law has joined the reality show franchise. Rachel would never, I remember asking years ago and Rachel went, don't even ask me this question. So I have a different way. If all 4 Heringer siblings were to do a show together, what show would it be or what kind of reality show would the 4 of you do?
That's a really good question. The show is not really set up for like 4 people to be on a team, but I think something like Traders would be really fun, like us 4 and see, because like I'm not a great liar, but I think I could read people pretty well. And I think like Rachel and one of our brothers has more like a poker face. So I think that would be a really fun show and just see who can kind of outsmart or kind of outwit the other one.
I like that.
Rachel, I immediately thought of, again, not set up for 4 people, but immediately thought of The Amazing Race. And I actually think that would be really good for the 4 of us, because then we can all bond. And learn
You said that
patience with one
it was
another.
a little devious, Abigail. You're like, we'll bond.
And we all travel so differently too, so I have no idea how that show would end up, but
oh God! Now I want, because you all, if I remember correctly, your brothers are also athletic. You 2 golf, and I know your brothers are a bit athletic as well. So that would be a hardcore competition between the 4.
They are, and they are pretty competitive. And I feel like there's just a lot of different personalities for sure. So I think either it would go really, really well, or we would be stuck at the first stop and not get on the same page about anything.
I love that. Oh my God. Now I want that so bad. We'll find a show. We're going to find a show, Rachel. Eventually we're getting you on something. You're like, fingers crossed. Now, for both of you, if you had to pick 2 adjectives to describe each other, Abigail, what 2 words would you use to describe Rachel, and how would you describe Abigail?
How she would describe me, right?
Yes.
Okay. I would say funny would be one of the top ones. And I think, what's like a good word for it? Like just a girl's girl, like loyal. She definitely really prioritizes the people in her circle for sure.
Aw.
Thanks. 2 words for Abigail. I would say she's really compassionate. So anything that she takes on, she is really passionate about it, but really also making sure that, similar to what you said about me, that, you know, your people in your circle are protected and loved. Was going to say you're funny too, but
people do say Rachel's funnier than me. So,
Wait.
But I would also say you're really wise. You have a lot of wisdom about yourself and the way you want to carry yourself and what you put out into the world. It's I learn a lot from you. So
that's very nice.
I like that. Now, Abigail, you wrote a book. You titled your book The Deaf Girl. Now, if Rachel were to write a memoir, what do you think she would title hers? She could obviously pick the same title, but what would she pick?
The Deaf Girl, the prequel.
So the first thing that came to my mind is something with Louie, her dog, her corgi, because she does everything with Louie. So I was thinking like Rachel and Louie, the adventures of Rachel and Louie. This book. But like you guys have lived to a couple different cities together. You could document like all your adventures in San Diego and Tulsa. And then you can get Louie like different outfits. I'm thinking more like a children's book, but
there we go. That's okay. Yeah, here we go.
I like it for that long.
I love that. And Rachel, final question. We know Abigail will be getting married soon. So if you were in charge of planning, you might be, so I don't know, but if you're in charge of planning Abigail's bachelorette party or her bridal shower, what is one thing you wanted to add that you're like, Abigail will love that I'm adding this?
Yes. Well, actually, it's all in process right now.
Oh, okay.
We're planning.
Don't break a secret. So,
but I think the one thing with Abigail is just making sure that all of her closest friends are there. That is what makes it really special to her. So I think, you know, we can decorate and we can do all this for her, but unless her best gal pals are there and me, that's what's going to make it really special for her. So
that's true.
I like that. We had to, at my sister's bachelorette party, we had to Zoom pretty much everybody because it was COVID. But we made sure they were all there with the shirts in all time zones. Everyone came. So I can relate. Okay. All right. We're going on to our next segment. No more rapid questions for the 2 of you. Before we do that, though, something else I love getting to talk about is our InvisiYouth charity shop. And you guys know that is where our subtle activist color block bracelets are. You will see some on my wrist, some are behind me on display. And those are our handmade bracelets by our young adults with chronic illness and disability that are sold exclusively on our Etsy store for $4 with free global shipping. 100% of every sale goes directly towards funding all of our free resources we put out every month for teens and young adults living with all types of chronic illness and disability, so they have access to resources to help them navigate the non-medical aspects of life with health struggles so they can thrive and find their own success and joy with any type of chronic illness or disability. So if you would like some subtle activism and some chic bracelets in your life, you can go on our Etsy store. We love some subtle activism. Like we always say, it's that Starbucks cup in the Game of Thrones scene. It is that wrong barrette we saw on that episode of Bridgerton when they decided to add hair clips back and forth on Penelope. We like to get some conversations going. And so if you would like to, it is on our screen and in our show notes as well. So please buy yourself a subtle activist color block bracelet for yourself or someone you love and know you are making a donation along the way. And now we're going to go into something you know we love. My next segment, it's titled Chat Me Up.
Chat Me Up.
Hey, wanna chat?
Chat Me Up, is a segment I love because it's all about me chatting with our guests, getting real and talking about ways to live an authentic and supportive life with your chronic illness and disability. So we're going to chat with Abigail and Rachel about all the ways that they have not only grown through the years, but also talking about how Abigail has then now documented that in her new book, The Deaf Girl, as well. So, Abigail, I wanted to ask, since your book now just came out, I remember something when we first had you on the podcast was you were talking about how being on The Bachelor was really the first time you were openly talking about your cochlear implants and being deaf and your journey. And so now, what kind of in those years since being on TV the first time and getting a more public audience, what has allowed you to feel comfortable and ready, if you will, to start talking in more of a documenting? And in a book, what people, social media, you're very open, but in a book, it's a lot more personal and introspective. So what has kind of made you feel ready and comfortable to do that with the book?
Yeah, so I mean, going on the show, that was definitely the scariest point in time in terms of kind of opening up about my disability. And I think that kind of just really set the stage. And then kind of sharing about it on social media afterwards wasn't as scary anymore. I think kind of just ripping the Band-Aid off was my approach to all of it. But I think what really just made me feel comfortable in sharing more about it is honestly just the people, the audience, the people following me. They just ask really good questions, and then when I answer them, they have double more questions, and it really just makes me excited and even more passionate about kind of just sharing more about my daily struggles, my daily life with the hearing loss. So it really just comes down to the people in the audience, the curiosity out there for sure, and everyone has just been very accepting too. That definitely was not the response I was anticipating. So I think all of that combined just made me very comfortable and excited to share about my hearing loss on social media.
Yeah, no, I love that because like you said too, it was that first step for you before. It's sort of that saying of things only seem more intimidating and scary when you keep them in the dark. But if you like open the door and let light into it, it seems less intimidating to the whole thing. So I love that kind of was part of that experience for you. And even on the flip side for Rachel, because I know I've always loved your dynamic with Abigail of how the two of you really support each other, both going through the experience of having a disability and having your CIs, but you're two unique people. And so you might react to things differently, and you both really support one another in that. So for you kind of being on the outside as Abigail's going through and you documenting and going through these experiences again as she's writing the book, were there things you might have learned about how Abigail thought of something that you didn't realize as you were growing up with her, or things that you might have like understood or appreciated differently as she was going through it, as somebody who the most in your family really connects and relates to her experience the most?
Definitely. Well, I think one big thing was just it was almost really validating in a way to hear her perspective, because I think sometimes when both of us are going through the journey together, just naturally being the oldest, I was the first one to have, the teachers or coaches and have to have that conversation. And Abigail would come in and she, probably would have something a little bit different than me, but kind of the precedent was already set. So it was really validating to kind of hear her perspective on that and recognize that. Not that I needed that, but it's nice to hear. But I also think Abigail is someone who keeps a lot inside, and it's kind of hard to sometimes break her shell. So hearing or reading rather, some of those details in different stories, it's, I've always wondered. And so now she's finally telling me after all these years. But no, it's been a really fun experience just watching her and my mom work together on this and just kind of go through some of those details, just because I think sometimes, we're just living our lives. And so sometimes these conversations just aren't had. So it's been fun to get more in depth.
Yeah. And also, shout out to your mom for writing this book with you. I know you mentioned that as well, and so I really give your mom her flowers and appreciate that as well. That's a beautiful thing. So I did want to mention that after Rachel mentioned it. But I like that you said that too, is being the older sibling and then going through it. A lot of times you would Abigail would follow through in the same way of how you handled it would probably be how people would mold into how Abigail should then handle it as well. But like you said, your personalities are different. So it's nice, like you said, for a writing perspective, it's very cathartic for Abigail. But I think a lot of people don't realize, even though a book is a very public stage, but for people who might just journal about what they're going through, that's nice then for family, because it allows the person writing to kind of feel comfortable opening up, but then also for family to feel like, oh, that's probably how you were feeling. I remember that. Or, oh, this feels a bit different now, learning from it from a different perspective. So I think I like how you phrased that too, that it allowed you to connect even more to and appreciate your journeys individually, but then also together, because you could really understand where Abigail might have been dealing with something or coming from something, because it then moving forward, you can then kind of connect to it differently.
Yep.
And I like that. I know from Abigail, was there something you might have learned while you were writing the book about Rachel and your dynamic as you were tapping into your side of experiences and maybe asking Rachel questions about things or how she remembered? Was there something you might have learned about Rachel and her journey that was new to you while you were writing it?
I think the biggest thing that I learned was really the time period before I was born, just because I think just going through it myself, I'm just so used to kind of just hearing stories from my mom about kind of my experiences or Rachel and I together, but being able to kind of hear what her journey was like those year and a half before I was born was really eye-opening, not only her experience, but also kind of what my mom was going through at the time, just because while we do have the same disability and a lot of similarities, that diagnosis period was very different just because my mom, I think, went about a year before she got the official diagnosis and then actually started Rachel on hearing aids before cochlear implant. So learning about that whole process was really interesting. And then kind of just seeing how, when I was born, how differently my mom was kind of able to handle the diagnosis of, okay, well, Rachel went through this, Abigail's showing some similar signs. Here's how I'm going to do it differently. And that was just something I have never really talked to my mom about before. So it was really interesting to kind of learn about that. And then I think it also kind of just explains a lot of things too with Rachel kind of in the earlier years and, you know, how much she kind of had to navigate everything for the first time. And then I kind of just came in and kind of just followed her throughout schooling and whatnot.
Yeah, and even probably your dynamics of going through your health journey with your mom being that advocate for the both of you, probably people would assume it would be very similar, but in a way, like you said, her dynamic probably with you, Rachel, is a little different because it was always the first time doing something or the first hiccup of something was always happening with you. So that dynamic between the two of you versus your mom with Abigail would be different because then she kind of learned with you. So the two of you were kind of always learning the process together, where you then kind of could harness that with Abigail. So I would imagine that even makes your dynamic, even with your mom, a little different of how you might have navigated that even through your years too.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of add on to that too, I think also just how different I think the emotions were, because like my mom did mention, like when Rachel was born and kind of going through the diagnosis the first 2 years, it was just a lot of emotions of, you know, being scared, kind of grieving, just a wide range of emotions. And then with me, it was very much more kind of just a relief in a way of, okay, we know versus, oh my gosh, there's so many questions, there's so many unknowns, everything. And I think it really kind of just paints a picture of, you know, same disability, very different experiences, and just how much the parent, you know, goes through during that time period.
Yeah, even Rachel, on your end too, is there something new that you've learned about Abigail or even about your mom and your family dynamic from you guys, your mom opening up about things that you might not have noticed or that you might have just been like, oh, I not take it for granted in a negative way, but it was just something so common sense that your mom might have been doing a lot for the both of you and you didn't realize? Was there things that you kind of learned through then Abigail getting to tap into this while writing?
definitely, I mean, going back to like our mom, I mean, I think we both can say we always knew that she put in a lot of time and work for us, helping us, especially in those earlier stages, and then helping us or advocating for us and then helping us make that transition to where we could do it ourselves. But I think kind of what you were saying, not the really early stages, you know, when I was still a baby and can't remember everything, that was really eye-opening in a way. And, you know, I think it's just a testament to how strong our mom was. And it's also crazy to think about because I'm 5 years older than she is when she had me. And then having Abigail a year and a half later. So she was probably like 26, 27 in that age when she had both of us, which to me, like when I was 27, I was still cooking like ramen and sitting on my couch with my dog watching The Bachelor. But no, but I think it puts it all into perspective. And then I think with Abigail, like I said earlier, I think learning a lot of those smaller details and just her perspective, not only at the time, but the way she's reflecting on those experiences is also really eye-opening. I think Abigail is someone that keeps her cards really close to her chest. And so being able to kind of dig a little deeper with her has really just opened up kind of just a bigger picture, which in a way is really validating, but also really rewarding just to hear and watch your journey unfold. So
yeah, it does. It brings you both closer in a way. I mean, I have an older sister as well, and for her to watch my health journey, but then versus when I would write about it and she would learn it, it was a very different experience to learn things, even from my dynamic with my mom, who's a nurse, but my mom was always my advocate walking into doctor appointments. So to then hear how certain things made my mom feel when she was a nurse, knowing what was happening and then having to try to relay it to me in a way that didn't seem scary or intimidating. It like you said, it bonds you differently because then you can kind of look at each other as not just like sister or mom or siblings, but like you look at each other as like individuals that you then really respect through the process because of it, which I think is a nice thing because you're close to begin with, but then to have that emotional intimacy come from it, I think is a unique process that a lot of people don't get to have.
For sure.
And then final question kind of for the both of you, for a lot of people that kind of want to share their experience or feel comfortable, like kind of opening up about different parts, how would you say to do that? What has worked well for you? Obviously, writing has worked well for the two of you to then open up, because I can relate to Abigail. I am definitely one that holds my cards to the chest quite a bit. So writing does help me to feel more comfortable. So are there things that have worked for the both of you that have allowed that to happen that you would suggest to others?
Yeah, I think in my experience, I kind of done both routes in terms of, you know, kind of the more personal side with my family and friends and strangers that I'm meeting in person. And I've always found that looking back at my experience growing up when I would not tell anybody, I mean, there was a time where my battery died at a movie theater and I couldn't even bring myself to tell my friend that it died. And I think just really seeing all the struggles that I went through, all the miscommunications, all the judgments, everything could have been avoided if I had just been open from the start. And I think a lot of people kind of misunderstand, you know, being open doesn't mean you need to share your life story as in depth, like a book, for example. It can just be as simple as saying, hey, I'm deaf, I might have missed that, or just kind of clarifying right away makes a world of a difference. And then on the flip side, you know, I have been sharing about it on social media, and I know that is becoming more and more popular. I think people are very comfortable on social media. It's a way for them to kind of have an outlet to kind of share their story, find people that have something similar. That is always an option. Personally, I have really enjoyed it, kind of building an audience, a community there. It's not for everybody. I mean, like Rachel, for example, she doesn't really post about it on social media, but that doesn't mean that she's not open about it or she doesn't talk about it. So I think it's kind of just figuring out what scale you want to share about it. But whether you do one or the other or both, it really is just putting it out there kind of in the beginning and just letting the other person know, because you can't expect them to understand or help you if they have no idea that you are struggling with that.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I like that a lot. You can't expect everyone to. Rachel's like, I concur. But I agree. And Rachel's like, I'm just posting scenery photos and photos of me with Lou. So, we're sharing. But I agree. And similarly, I'm the same. My nonprofit's based off my chronic illnesses, but I would never share about mine on a social media platform personal. So it's a very similar kind of way of it. I've found a lane that works for me of doing advocacy work through the nonprofit that I'm comfortable sharing philanthropically, but then personally it takes that one-on-one experience for me to feel comfortable saying what I need and asking, where I feel like probably on Rachel's end, that's probably a similar lane. Like in this dynamic, you're comfortable being on a podcast sitting with Rachel and Abigail, you two talking about it. But then personally, it's like I'm open when I'm with people, but not like for the random follower somewhere to share. That's not my vibe.
I mean, I think both can be really scary. There's some situations in real life too. I think both of us have had to kind of figure out, like with dating, for example, I think both of us have fallen into both where we don't tell the person or we do. And I don't know about you, but in my experience, I have found in every instance that I've told the person, it's worked out better than not telling the person. So I think both are equally scary. I think it's just kind of finding a good balance with yourself, kind of how much you are comfortable with sharing. And it takes practice too. I mean, it's not something you can expect to, okay, I'm ready today and I'm going to do it. I'm going to tell everybody. It doesn't happen like that. I think it's just small steps, like telling the waiter one day and then maybe, okay, I'm going on a date and maybe let me, build up to that or something.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good answer. And we're right at our halfway marker, guys. We're going into our final two segments with Abigail and Rachel, and I'm excited. You guys know you're almost at intermission, our story time segment. So don't rush me, listeners or viewers. You're getting to the favorite part of the show soon. But I always like to thank everyone for listening or watching InvisiYouth Chat Sessions. We've been able to almost hit our 100 episode marker because of incredible supporters like you who are utilizing our digital resources we put out every month for teens and young adults who are living with chronic illness and disability, and now almost 13 countries that are downloading our resources, which is incredible. So we are so excited that by your donations, you are able to then help fund these resources because they're 100% free, and 100% of every donation directly goes towards creating and releasing these incredible resources for our really deserving young adults living with chronic illness and disability across the spectrum. So if you or someone you know or love is able to donate, it always helps us so much. So we add our donation link on the screen and in the description and show notes if you are able to, and we thoroughly appreciate it. And without further ado, guys, it is So That One Time.
So that one time.
So that one time, you guys know, it is when I get to sit back and have a nice drink and let my guests take the mic and share a story. So I'm going to let Rachel and Abigail take the mic, and the floor is yours. Share a story.
Do you want to go first? We were talking about what stories we want to tell, and I think we found two good ones. So.
Okay.
Which one do you want to do?
Well, I'll do the chair one because that was me.
The chair one? Okay. So a few years back, we were driving. Abigail was driving, and we unfortunately got hit from behind from another car. And
we were completely stopped.
Yeah, we were completely stopped. It was, and everyone's fine, just to preface the story. But got hit, and immediately the impact was so strong that both of our ears, both of our cochlear implants,
like our head jerked forward. There was no airbag, so our head literally
just jerked, and we both lost our cochlear implants on the floor.
I was able to find mine right away. You could not find yours
find mine
by the time. So we were. Oh yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. Then we're driving to find a spot to exchange insurance information, and I think the entire time was me I lost my ear. I lost my ear.
So I had to talk to the guy by myself.
Abigail's like, it's fine. It's in here somewhere. Like, it didn't like fall out of the car or anything. But poor Abigail, you know, is just sad about her car in the back and trying to talk to this guy. And meanwhile, I'm in the front seat. I can't find my ear. I can't find my ear.
Which I'm like, I don't know how that would work. If it was only me in the car and that happened to me, would I just have to like tell the guy, I'm so sorry, I'm deaf. I'm going to need you to write down your information and we'll chat when I can find my ear.
Or you just say, hold, please.
I'm just waiting for the guy to come up to your car and just hearing your sister in the passenger seat going, I lost my ear. I lost my ear. And going, how hard did I hit him? You're like,
so that was memorable. I feel like mine, it's less traumatizing, but it has happened a couple times, and maybe it can help someone else. But one morning I was getting ready for work, and this is when we lived together in Portland, and I always get ready with my cochlear implant on, and so it wasn't weird that I didn't have it on until I was ready to walk out the door, and I'm packing up my bag, and I can't find my ear anywhere. It's not in my bed. It's not in my charger. It's not in the bathroom. I went down to my car and looked. I was like, maybe on an off chance. I don't know. Can't find it anywhere. And I'm late for work. So I'm having to email my boss and say, I am so sorry. I cannot find my processor. I cannot come into work. And thankfully, they were very understanding. And I'm looking. At that point, I'm just exasperated. I'm like, how can I not find my processor that I just had last night? 2 hours later, I find it. There's a magnetic part on the processor. It must have fallen off the table or something and bounced weird and bounced back up. And it got stuck on the inside part of the chair that you can't see. I had to like feel around the chair. It got stuck to the chair. And there was relief that I found it. But part of me was like, only that would happen to me. But it's happened again in New York. And so if you can't find your processor, just check anywhere that's magnetic.
That's true.
I was going to say, Rachel, has your processor been magnetized to somewhere odd as well?
No, I never lose mine. Knock on wood.
I was going to say, you're like, yours is always charged and it's never lost.
I'm such a routine-based person that batteries go in, same place every single time. And my charger's always moving around the house. I fall asleep in a different part of the house every night. So I'm more of a wild card.
Hey, I do remember on your Instagram story, I think I wrote to Rachel when I saw it that you were like, oh, we're both charging our processors, or yours wasn't charged and Rachel's was. And I wrote to Rachel and I went, I remember you guys saying this happens.
Yeah. You know, we're like 30 years old. We're still having all the same issues.
I love it so much. I just love that your sister knew right away. I was like, I got to tell Rachel. I was like, I can really remember this very clearly. Oh my, I like those stories very much. And guys, you might find one of those stories maybe, or not, making an entrance into Abigail's book, or another fun story as well, who knows. So, you're like, spoiler. But we're going to go into our final segment with Rachel and Abigail. We're doing In an Ideal World. We are going to be taking a new spin on an OG segment with the podcast where we know that living with a chronic illness or disability means you have to find new ways to adapt and thrive when different things in life change. And since we had Abigail and Rachel on previously, lots of things have changed in their life. So we are going to talk about how they have found confidence in their new environments and new experiences and how they would pass on some advice to all of you watching or listening. So a question for the both of you, so you can decide who wants to take it first. But since you now have kind of, as I've said, you both had, Abigail has moved to New York at one time, Rachel and you both had moved to San Diego at one time, and now you're both in Tulsa together. How have you found sort of balanced finding your footing in new environments while also, because living with a disability or with a chronic illness, you have to then kind of reacclimate yourself to a new environment and new people. So how have you both done that differently, or what has worked for you as you both have kind of navigated this new chapter in Tulsa together, or separate together, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think we've been really fortunate that both kind of San Diego and Tulsa, we knew a lot of people coming into these different areas, and those people knew about our condition. And I think part of it is San Diego as well, but mostly Tulsa. Noah has lived in both areas, and so he knows everybody. And so we just got connected with so many people right away. And I think Noah did a really good job of either kind of filling them in, or they saw from my social media. And then I don't know with you if they knew right away, or if you had to kind of tell people and have that conversation. But
I have run into that a lot. It's kind of funny though, because it's kind of reverse, because you and Noah have kind of helped me
versus
you guys are going
yeah.
first and meeting people first, and then through you guys it's just kind of like a
I think somebody was laughing that they didn't know that you were deaf.
I know, it was such a compliment.
I know. Well, I try to remember what happened, but well, and I think also too, I think just the stage of life that we're in is just so different than like going through college. I think college is very much like a superficial period in your life, to where you're just like, I just want to get to know everybody as quickly as I can, small talk. Whereas kind of the stage that we're in, we're more open to kind of having deeper conversations right away, because we really just want to know who we're hanging out with, build up those friendships with a smaller group of people. And so I think the conversations just come up a lot more naturally about our hearing loss. People like asking questions. It's not invasive, but I think also too, people can connect the two. I think much more quicker of, okay, the sisters are deaf. If they miss something, they're not being rude. Like they're able to kind of make that connection a little bit quicker than someone in middle school, for example, where you have to lay it out and say, I did not hear you. Can you please repeat yourself?
Yeah.
So I think the transition has been really easy for me.
Yeah. I also think, I think like you said, just this point in time in our lives, we've had a lot of life experience, but then also the people that we're meeting also have had a lot of life experience. And so I think it's quicker to kind of not necessarily understand it right away, but if I say something, shoot, I'm so sorry, I'm actually deaf and I have a cochlear implant, that's why I'm asking you again to basically repeat everything. I think it's quicker for people to say, oh, my grandpa's deaf. Or I know someone, but I think when you get older, it's quicker to draw those connections. And so it's just a little bit easier just to have that conversation. Whereas I think, like you said, in middle school or high school, you don't necessarily think of those connections right away. And so it's when you tell someone, then
they kind of panic and they're like, we don't know how to respond to that. So let me say something really out of pocket.
Exactly.
Super unhinged response. Like, my second cousin has no hearing in his left ear.
But I think that just comes with age and adulthood, I guess you could say. Yeah.
And I like that you said that too, because it was in a way of kind of, because of even with Noah as well, being so not even accommodating, but so interested in making sure people knew to make it easy, because I mean, your future sister-in-law, but like as well for Abigail too, to just let people know, so that kind of initial barrier or just sort of interest from people would be easy. But even on Rachel's end, like this is like Abigail's this is her new family, like new family members and all of that. And for you, you're kind of navigating, building a whole new social network for yourself and doing all of that too. So it's nice to hear that kind of, even as you get older, that people think you're kind of explaining the reverse, which I think is interesting. A lot of people think as you get older, I mean, I'm 31, even though I look like 17 most of the time, but it's like Rachel and I can hang out. But like me trying to meet people or date at my age, like you are, and you're mentioning your health issues, you're like trying to make new friends, and you're like, oh God, I have to work out this muscle again of socializing and meeting new people. And like, but you're taking it from a different angle of being confident in how you like to speak and address things is a better way than feeling maybe nervous about, oh God, I have to address this to a whole new group of people. I don't want to do this again. So I think kind of your way of taking it from being confident in how you like to live and address things works in a way of actually building that dynamic up faster with new people in a new environment.
100%. And I think just adding on to, I think, again, kind of the stage in life that we're in, I think we figure out what works really well for us. And I think also just being more in tune with what we're comfortable with. So like, for example, like in college, I would just be go, go, go 24/7. I would never take a break, anything. And so when something small would happen in terms of my disability, I think either I would get very, very frustrated, or I would take 10 steps back and I would be like, you know what? I did not like that, so forth. But whereas like now with all the social events that we're doing and stuff, I feel much more comfortable saying, you know what? I'm exhausted. I have listening fatigue. I'm going to sit this one out. I'm going to take a day off or something, and just feeling much more comfortable with that and not feeling like I have FOMO, because I know that's what's best for me. Definitely, I think has helped with this transition.
Yeah. No, I like that. And even kind of going off of that too, I know you mentioned your fiance Noah as well. And I know for a lot of young people navigating a chronic illness or disability and dating, how to make their partner feel comfortable asking questions of how they can assist or accommodate, or how you can then open up to them of your needs, can feel intimidating. So is there something that's worked well for you and Noah in building that strength? I mean, obviously his background in nursing helps, but what has kind of been like a good point for the two of you of that you would say for other young people kind of navigating that?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing we just want to emphasize is it's different for everybody. Yeah. Just because Noah and I did it this way does not mean it's for everybody. But I mean, initially I told him that I have a hearing loss. He was aware of it because he did watch my season. So that helps kind of just getting it initially out of the way. But in terms of when we were actually together and dating, I did ask him at some point, I think with one of my hear me outs, was it intimidating for you? So forth. And the one thing that he said that really stuck out to me was, it's really not a big deal to me at the end of the day. And I think some people can hear that and be like, well, he's not being considerate of her disability, or he's overlooking it and so forth. But that's the reality of it. I think it's something that I'm going to have for the rest of my life. If something comes up, we can absolutely have a conversation about it. And he definitely is there to advocate for me and so forth. But I think just the way that he treats it as, you're Abigail, I'm not walking on eggshells around you with your disability. It's a huge weight off of my shoulders. I love talking about it on social media and my book every single second of the day, not necessarily. And so I think it's just so nice for me to be able to have someone that is very mindful of the things that help me on a day-to-day basis, but is not making it like the focal point of every single conversation, because I think that would just make me feel more like, oh, I'm the deaf girl in this sense. So I think just kind of finding that balance with your partner, being able to communicate your needs, but also seeing your partner for your partner and not their disability at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I like how you phrase that too, because every person comes into a relationship with things that their partner would have to adapt to, just personality, how they navigate experiences, and yours might sometimes relate more towards your disability, but it's still sort of that way that you both have to navigate each other. Yeah. So I think him kind of associating that being like, oh, this just part of you, so I have to navigate that with you. It is a nice take for someone to then realize that having a partner can do that easily, because there's we put so much worry on ourselves of, oh my God, someone has to adapt so much to me, and what is this going to look like? And so I think the way you phrased it, even with Noah, is very refreshing. For people to kind of realize that that is common for a partner to just sort of look at you as the full person, and this is just part of the package, which I think is great. And then even on Rachel's end as well, a lot of things that we'll hear is sort of with new family members coming in. I had it with my brother-in-law as well, him getting to learn my sister's boyfriend, now husband, learning about my chronic illnesses and how he could be helpful to me, or if I needed his help. He had to kind of adapt to me differently than just sort of him coming into the fold when I was having flare-ups or bad days. So for you, what would be kind of ways that you think, because obviously he's also learned ways of how Abigail might navigate with her CIs that are different than the way you do. So how have you kind of, would you say, for people trying to find ways to build that relationship up with new family members or new friends coming into the fold that have worked for you in terms of making that relationship for you and Noah as brother and sister-in-law strengthen?
Noah's my brother now, I guess.
You're like soon to be brother-in-law.
No, I think, well, one thing I did want to touch on, I think too, is kind of going back to just being adults and finding your community. I think if you're open about it right away, it's actually going to be more beneficial to you rather than who you're being open to, because then you can kind of gauge whether this person has interest in being a really good friend to you and wants to learn more, or in a rare case, they're like, ooh, like I can't take that information, like I can't help you. But it actually benefits you as the person, I think, with the disability being able to share it, because then it's out in the open, then your friendships just become stronger, or your relationships. So that was the first thing I wanted to say. And then I think as far as with Noah and brother-in-law, I think the biggest thing was, Abigail and him, I think one thing they really connected on was that they both come from really great families, and the family is really their core unit. And then they've been able to get a lot of traits from their family that they've, shared with the world. And, but I think that's one pull that they had towards each other. And so I remember like the first time I met Noah, I think he roasted me and then I roasted him right back. But I think that's what's really amazing about Abigail and Noah's love story, is that they really just take everything that they've learned from their families, and then it's just, that's who they are. And so when they meet people, when Noah meets our family and when I meet Noah's family, it just seems so natural, just because I think there's so many similarities with how the sibling dynamic is, with how Abigail with our parents, Noah with his parents, the same level of just respect and love and care. It's very similar. So I think that's what it really comes down to. And, I've met a few of the herbs, because there's met a few of the herbs. There's a lot of them. But it's literally like just meeting different versions of Noah, some funnier than Noah, which is great. But
You're
no,
not gonna be happy with that one.
But no,
like, clip it. No, I'm kidding.
But it's kind of weird to say, because Abigail and Noah are the ones getting married, but it feels so natural meeting his family, and then just spending time with Noah and Abigail just feels really natural with Noah, and I think that's what drew them together in the first place. So.
Yeah. I like how you said that too, even going back to what you said initially of building that, feeling comfortable in yourself of how you like to address your chronic illness or disability, that then relays to how you address it to people who are going to become part of the family unit. And you then know how to navigate asking for help, or them knowing how you like to receive it. And like, this is the way that Abigail likes to communicate versus Rachel likes to communicate. Obviously, you might like to roast each other, like you said, a bit more than maybe Abigail and Noah like to with each other. But you're like, no, we do it the same. But there's that dynamic is set, and then you can kind of build off of that in terms of things that you might need. So I think that's, like you said, important for people to think of when it comes to new people coming into families and stuff. And then the final question I had to ask, this is going to seem like a very fluffy question, literally, but the two of you are both dog moms. So I had to address that. Obviously, like I said before, Rachel has the cutest corgi on the planet, Lou. I think I send her heart emojis to Lou photos every time he's on the Instagram story, being like, this dog knows its angles and it's frightening.
Really watching us do our podcast.
I love it. And even your new dog as well, Abigail, you and Noah have Maki as well. And I remember before you had gotten Maki too, you were talking about, I would want a dog, so there's somebody else in the house with me, if I'm ever alone as well. So for the two of you, what has kind of been the most beneficial thing or most enjoyable thing that you've noticed having a dog in your life? I mean, I know you've had Lou way longer, but so how is that kind of obviously your book title would be For the Two of You Together. But so what have you both enjoyed, or have they given something to you that have brought something in ease and you're like, wow, I didn't expect this to come from having a dog?
He gave me a full heart.
Oh,
No, I'm kidding. No, I think all the cuddles from Lou, but I think just the sense of peace and security when he's in my apartment. Like last weekend, I had to take him to doggy daycare because I was going out of town, and he had to come back to my apartment, and he wasn't there. And I felt really just like kind of disheveled and like out of place. I was like waiting to hear him like jump off the bed or something, and he wasn't. So, yeah, I think that's probably the best part. Just having him sit there, look right at you while you're working all day, and then go back to sleep.
I think mine are pretty similar. I think for Maki, he's just like the perfect dog. But I think in terms of with my disability, he has just been the most amazing, I think, like security in a way. Like he has a loud bark. So when I don't have my ear on, I can still feel like the vibrations of his bark, which has been amazing because he barks at any time someone comes to the door, whatnot. But I think on like a personal side, I think I was not expecting like having a dog would like slow me down like in a good way. I think just like the last 3 years, my life has just been kind of chaotic and busy. And I think just having him has been a really good reminder of, okay, let's slow down. Like, let's go for a walk today. Let's, you know, get some fresh air outside and play. I think just has been the best thing for my mental health, everything. So yes, getting a dog was the best decision ever.
I love that. And also your dog is named with a macchiato, correct? That's okay. Yep. My sister's dog is gelato, so I can.
Yeah,
I
mean, he has all the colors and everything. We just call him Maki for short because macchiato is so long.
You could, when you're mad, you're like, when it's discipline time, it's macchiato.
Yes,
yeah.
Macchiato. Well, we need to figure out if he's Heringer or herb right now, but he will be macchiato herb officially in October. So
I love that. And guys, that's the end of the podcast episode. I wish I could borrow you more, even longer, but I can't. I have to send you on your way. But I'm so thankful I got to have you both back on the podcast. And I would love for people to be able to find the both of you and also find your book, Abigail. So where can people find both of you online?
So you guys can find me on social media, Abigail_Heringer, and then you can find The Deaf Girl on either Amazon or Barnes & Noble. It's pre-order right now, but it will officially be out on September 10th.
Yay! And Rachel, I forget if you like to drop your handle or not. So let me know. You're like, never mind.
The fact that I had to go look at Instagram to make sure my handle is what I was going to say sends everything. But it's Heringer_Rachel. But I'll also give you my corgi if you guys want to go see my corgi's page. It's at Sir_Louis_ the corgi.
And
in the bio.
Guys, it's a great follow, just let you know. But yeah, I'm so happy to have you both back on the show. Thank you both so much. I really enjoyed it, and I know everybody else did as well. So thank you again for being on the podcast.
Of course.
Thanks for having us again.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. And guys, I will speak to all of you soon on our next episode. Bye, everybody.